the middle interior section of Rhapsody in Blue. Check this out. Mi, fa, sol, so, la, ti, do, re, mi. Blues again. E major. And that interior line. Ti, te, la, 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 ti. And so on and so forth, right? You've got 3 pitches and 5 rhythms, right? Short, 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 long, long. And the 3 pitches, da, da, da. Well, that's Talia and Calor. It goes all the way back to the Middle Ages, right? You've got a pitch succession, rhythm succession. Also buys into, what's going on kind of in 12-tone music and so on. So he's in Paris. By 1926, he writes 3 piano preludes. And once again, we got blues going. When Ravel demonstrated his concerto for the left hand, he played it with both hands. So that's my excuse here with the accompaniment at the beginning of the 2nd piano prelude of George Gershwin. That's total Stravinsky. Check the bass line. We've got, this is C sharp minor. Do, so, fa. Right? That's sus 4. People will call it actually too. Okay, a lot of people do that. And then this, shall we say, tenor line of me, mi, do. And that's also the blues. But the main melody, we're in C sharp minor, and he's up here like this. So te so te so, so te so te so, so te so te so do so te so do so te so. Pretty similar to what we had in Rhapsody in Blue. He was going to write 24 preludes, only got around to 3. So another composer haunted by the big piano piece, the big ambitious piano piece, but not quite there. In Paris, he actually applies, he makes contact with Nadia Boulanger, who we haven't talked about yet, but she'll come up a couple of times. She is a French pedagogue. Her sister, Lily Boulanger, was a wonderful composer, but died young. Nadia lives a long life. She feels that American composers don't quite have the chops, so she opens a school in Fontainebleau and invites basically a lot of American students to come for finishing school in music theory. We'll get back to that. Gershwin is interested. She turns him down. Ravel turns Gershwin down for lessons, and Ravel's basic notion is something to the effect of, how much did you make last year, my friend, mon ami? And Gershwin told him, and he smiled and said, it is I who should be studying with you. And in some ways, arguably Ravel did, because think of those late piano concerti, both which are touched by jazz. That's in the 1930s, of course, but things percolate in the brain for a while. And speaking about brain, they both die, of course, of brain problems. Composers who die of brain ailments in 1937. Gershwin on July 11th and Ravel on December 28th. In Gershwin's case, it is, he starts getting blinding headaches, and he senses the smell of burning rubber. And he's gone in 1937, but not before composing a late, great opera. And, it had mixed reviews, so we can't really say that he died of a broken heart because it was not successful, but there's something in there. In some ways, Porgy and Bess almost had too many good tunes, and there was a perception that it's merely a musical comedy, but there's recitative. The only people that speak are the European Americans. The African Americans throughout sing. Boy meets girl. Girl is already paired with other boy who is a murderer. Boy is a handicapped guy, a mobility challenge. I identify with that. I'm not there yet. He's going around in a goat cart. Tragedy ensues in some ways. Bess winds up going off to New York to seek a fortune with Sport and Life after Crown is out of the picture, killed by Porgy, and Porgy goes after. This is way before. This is opening tune, not even one of the main characters, but a great example of the importance of placement and tonality. I'm just going to do this in C major because. And think of this. If you had, right, you definitely have a mi, re, do with Mary Had a Little Lamb. So check this little melody out. And that's the beginning of Summertime. Summertime! Sounds like major, right? Oh, but it's not going to go there. Try this instead of mi, so, mi. Try it as a so. So, me, so. Fa, me, fa, so, me. Do, so. How about that? Magic. There's the blues for you. Ambiguity of major and minor. Stravinsky would approve too. And those Debussyan parallel chords of the added sixths that begin this excerpt. In Paris, and maybe before and definitely afterwards, he develops an enthusiasm for the music of Debussy, Schoenberg. He asks also Schoenberg for lessons at one point, and again, Schoenberg turns him down. Most of the attitude was, why become a second-rate Schoenberg, Ravel, whatever, when you're a first-rate Gershwin? Actually, when Schoenberg relocates, becomes a refugee to America, a good life for a refugee, though. Living in Hollywood, living in Brentwood. Gershwin actually calls him up and challenges him to a tennis match. I don't know who won, but what a delightful idea. Yes, Schoenberg was a tennis player. And Prokofiev, a chess player. And the painting connection. Schoenberg, you recall, was a painter as well as a musician. Here is his portrait of Alban Berg. And here is Berg with his portrait of Alban Berg. And here is Gershwin learning how to paint and painting Schoenberg. Let's try that list again. Debussy, Schoenberg, Stravinsky, Berg. He even attends the premiere, the American premiere of Wozzeck under Stokowski. Mio. And we talked about Les Six. Fa, re, mi, so. And against that, we got garden variety plagal cadence until it's not. And a little bit of funky chicken here. Yeah. Duke Ellington. Jazz is truly all the rage, and after King Oliver, quite natural to have Duke Ellington. And Duke, born in 1899, fairly young start, really can introduce us formally to the swing era, the big band era. In the 1930s into the early 40s, and we're talking about, instead of the Dixieland trad jazz, New Orleans style of one clarinet, one trumpet, one or two in either of those cases, trombone, and then the rhythm section of banjo and piano and tuba/bass and drums. Now we have a big band. It ain't nearly as big as a symphony orchestra, of course, but transmogrify that one clarinet into 5 saxophones, 4 or 5, and many times it's subdivided into 2 altos, 2 tenors, and baritone sax, then 4 or 5 each of trumpets and trombones. The banjo is pretty much supplanted by the guitar, but the guitar has a pretty small voice. And of course we are definitely in with the string bass rather than the tuba. That's not too loud either. Stay tuned on both counts, and still piano and drums. So the ensemble really looks like this. the blues scale is still important, but the structure of 12-bar blues may be a little less important in this period. In Concerto for Cootie, we're really in a rondo form of A, B, A, C, A. Yet, on the other hand, blues is still with us, like C jam blues, which has a motif of just so, do throughout, and you'll notice that actually works with a one chord, so, do. When you get to 4, that's so, I guess that could be a ninth or a second going on there, so, do, and then the 5 chord, so, do, which is kind of an appoggiatura to the mi, but also could be an anticipation to going back to do. We won't see a whole big band there, just Duke Ellington himself, bass player, and some of the other musicians are just coming in, but we got to move on. And then finally, from a Latin jazz tinged later Duke Ellington, and Latin jazz has been moving up in the world. The combinations of Hispanic music and, well, non-Hispanic have been happening since at least the 19th century. So, Habanera et al. And so eminently appropriate in this bunny hop mambo. And yes, there is a boop, 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 is a through line throughout the piece. And to my knowledge, the world's highest trumpet solo. Yes.